All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is day number 43. Day number 43 inside of our 30K in 90 days challenge. My name is Tracy Walker. And guys, listen, we're going to talk today about whether you are afraid of failure or success. All right. It's got to be one of the two, right? And the reason why I say it's got to be one of the two is because if you were not afraid of something, guess what? You'd probably already have a lot of the stuff that you want. But it's something holding you back. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to welcome you guys today, number 43, with the challenge. And Again, my name is Tracy Walker. I am a baseball mom and I am a documented seven-figure digital marketer. I've been able to do really well in the network marketing industry, make millions of dollars there, been able to do really well inside of the digital marketing space. With or affiliate marketing, I should say, as well as the digital marketing by creating my own products, my own courses, my own trainings, all of that good stuff, and really being in a blessed position to be able to teach people how to do some of the things that I have been blessed to learn how to do. All right. And I just think that that is an amazing thing when you are blessed to have something and you have the ability to communicate with others how they can too do it. I just think that's a noble thing, right? I think it's a noble thing. Anyway, that is that. All right. So we have been talking over the last, 42 days or so about having a digital marketing business. And let me just say this really wasn't part of what I was going to talk about here on tonight, but I do want to talk about this for a second because the timing of when I'm doing this, right? We are at a critical stage, okay, in the United States, everywhere around the world as well. But I live in the continental US, okay? I'm born and raised in the United States, okay? I'm originally from the city of Chicago and I currently live in Atlanta. So I happen to pay a lot of attention to things taking place in my hometown as well as in my current town. And here's what I know that the cost to live has gone up significantly. Okay. Me living what we call down south, generally, it has a less expensive cost of living than it does up north. Okay. Chicago, New York, those types of bigger cities. Um, but what we're seeing is we're seeing this inflation really start to grab hold of people all over the country, even in areas and cities and states where, generally speaking, cost of living is not as aggressive. There used to be a time more recently, not that long ago, I can't give you exact times, I'm going on top of my head, where the average person making $50,000 a year or whatever, $40,000 a year, could actually live. We're at a point now where this is very important. Okay, we're at a point now where $59,000 is the average income, and the average rent is like $2,000. Okay, and most places, if you're going to rent, and we're going to talk about home ownership, okay, but if you're going to rent, most places, especially apartment complexes, right? Now, if you're renting a home, maybe slightly different. Um, but these places want like two and three times the amount of your monthly salary for you to be able to show that you make three times the amount of your salary. I'm sorry, three times the amount of the rent. My apologies. That you make three times the amount of the rent monthly in order to be approved to live there. So if a person is making, let's say, $59,000 a year, okay, um, even if we gave that a little, let's just call it 3,000, because 3,000 a month. I'm sorry, 5,000 a month, right? About 5,000 a month. Um, 5 times 12 is 60, right? 5,000 a month. That would mean that you would need to show that if the rent is 2,000 a month, you got to show that you make 6,000 a month, but you only make 5. And you haven't eaten yet, you haven't had childcare yet, you haven't put gas in your car yet, you have not paid your cell phone bill yet, you have not bought any shoes, any clothes, you have not paid your light bill yet. Um, you have not done some of the basic things that you need to do in your life, which means that on average, it's going to always be people. Listen, and when I speak, I do my best to speak from a position of generalizations because there's absolutely zero way for me to be able to categorize every single person. And anyone that speaks where you think they're trying to say every single person, I think that that's a little strange to do that. Okay. So generally speaking, if the average income is 59,000, 60,000 a year. It's virtually impossible to live. The average person is at a deficit just improving the amount of income that they have $1,000 right now. What do? Because I'm a firm believer and I understand completely that if you're working a job, you cannot change your salary. But I am an advocate and I'm a firm believer that you can change your income. You may not be able to change up how much those people pay you, but you can dang sure fix how much you actually bring in addition to them. So you got those people that pay you a check, but that should not be all of your income. That's your salary. That's not your income. So you can't control the salary, but you can definitely control the income. And so as we sit around and I'm on day 43 and you watch these challenge days and you go back and watch the other days, or you're going to be with me in the future days and so on and so forth. I find it fascinating, actually, that we can look at the state of where we are in the country and knowing that most people don't make enough, knowing that it's check to check because anything crazy could happen, any type of catastrophe could happen. 2020 taught you that. I've been teaching this since 2008 on the internet, that you should always have a secondary, third stream of income. I've been teaching it a long time. And then in 2020, people who used to tell me things like, oh, I got a government job, they suddenly realized that even those two could be sacrificed. And so I want to ask you, what are you afraid of when it comes down to starting a business? What is it that you are afraid to happen? Are you afraid that you're going to fail at it? Are you afraid that your friends and family are going to see you actually attempt to do better and you maybe fall down and you maybe hurt yourself and they point their finger and laugh at you? Are you afraid of what other people are going to say as you attempt to pull yourself and your family out of a paycheck to paycheck scenario? You're more concerned with what somebody else who's not paying your bills has to say about you making the attempt to get out of the stronghold. Are you afraid of that? Are you afraid of maybe making enough money because maybe you have been taught and maybe subconsciously you feel like people who have money are bad or they're evil because that's the way the cartoons positioned it for you when you were growing up, right? The cartoons always had the evil person was the banker. Well, bankers are kind of evil, but the rich person, right? The rich people were the evil people, okay? When in reality, if I look around, and I don't know about you, but I do come from the inner city of Chicago, I didn't really see a bunch of the rich people breaking into houses. I didn't see the rich people robbing or stealing. I didn't see the rich people hitting licks. I didn't see the rich people doing a lot of the things that I see a lot of the poor people doing. Now, everybody does what they do. What I'm saying is that it's not like rich is bad, but poor is good. It's not that either. So this ideology that maybe you're afraid of having money because money might make you feel like your friends would think you're better than you are, right? Better than somebody else. Like that in itself is something that would need to be addressed. Maybe you fear ridicule, you know? Cuz I will say this. I have an MBA, and so therefore I worked corporate for a while, okay? Um and I know in the corporate environment, you got to know your job really good, right? You got to know your job really good. Your colleagues look to you for your expertise, and you got that job because you were smart, or you got that job because your credentials, your qualifications, the letters behind your name, your experience, whatever it is, the institution that you went to, the weight that it carries, your recommendations, who your dean was, who your recommendation letters, right? Like all of that plays a part. And people's expectations. In other words, in a corporate environment, you're more expected to be perfect. You're more expected to know your ish, right? You're more expected. And why? Because if you don't, they have the power to fire you. Right? If due to a lack of performance or a lack of leadership or a lack of knowledge in a certain area or the way that you execute your team building, right? Your inability to get along with others or create havoc and conflict, inability to communicate well, those types of things, right? So you find yourself having to be a know-it-all. Let me just put it out there. You find yourself having to be a know-it-all. You got to know everything because you can't ever act like you don't know something at work, right? Because at work, like how you not know that? So what happens, maybe you might start a business and you have to actually be a human and realize that you don't know everything. And then you might have to actually learn something and learn something from a different perspective. See, when we were in school, you learn so that you could pass your test. You learn so that you could get your grade. You learn so that you could, get a passing mark on your paper, your dissertation, your whatever it is, right? You learn the things from a memorization standpoint. And in home-based business, you don't learn for a grade. You learn for the actual dollars that you would like to exchange for the knowledge, value, or whatever that you share with people who are buying whatever it is that you are promoting and selling. And so, therefore, you would have to learn more stuff. And your inability to articulate it the way you feel you need to, or that you know all the details about the thing before you go out and say something, right? All of that may play a role in why you know consciously you need to have multiple streams of income, but why subconsciously it's not happening. So you're afraid of something. I don't know whether it's failure, I don't know whether it's success. But fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. And so, if you actually had faith in yourself, believe in yourself, then you would get up and get going and say, you know what? Let me learn how this works. Let me put it into action. Let me learn the strategies of digital marketing. Let me learn how to use social media to my financial benefit, as well as the mutual benefit to the people that are looking to you for your leadership, your guidance, your expertise, right? The value that you bring. Let me figure this thing out. You know why? Because I cannot depend on the government to help me, not the rest of my life, right? You is your expectation that the government should pay for everything for you? So the government should now pay for your food. The government should now pay for your schooling. The government should pay for your housing. The government should pay for your childcare. The government should pay for this. The government and see, and what happens is the more you depend on, and I'm saying the government because we're in an election year right now. This is 2024. I'm saying the government because that's the thing, but let me just make it very crystal clear. Anybody, you being dependent upon anybody, including your job, that you can't control is risky. It's risky. Have you ever had someone come live with you in your house? I've had a couple times. my sisters, at various times. Have you ever had someone live in your house? Now, the reality is that if someone lives in your house, whether it's for short term or long term or whatever, and it's not like a roommate situation, not like y'all went and got that place together and you're both on the lease or you both bought the house or whatever. It's like, hey, you live here, and then, oh my goodness, can I come crash with you for a little while because some things is going on? And you say yes. The reality is that it's still your house. And ultimately, if the person that is needing to stay with you for a little while, get on their feet, does things that you don't like, or is disrespectful, or is just untidy, or they don't live in their space the way that you want your space to be lived in, you actually have a right to put them out. It's because they control it. You could live there for free while you're getting yourself together for 12 months. You could live there for free. That's what they agree to allow you to do. But free means you have zero control. And even if you were paying a little something, that's really just a contribution because it's still not your place. It's their place. They're just letting you use it. So the dependency on anybody, to be honest, whether it's the government, whether it's a friend, whether it's a parent, if you're an adult, a parent, right? Like if you're the child, but you're an adult, but you're depending on your parent who's also now an older adult. That's what I'm saying, right? The dependency on any third party is a risky thing. And if we're at a point where you'd rather depend on somebody else than yourself, that's where that's where I come into play. And I say, well, wait a second. Where's your self-esteem? Why do you believe that this job is going to pay you more than you believe that you could pay yourself? You have more belief and more faith in a corporate entity that you don't even know, more so than you do in yourself and your ability to do what you need to do to take care of yourself and your family. And so as an entrepreneur over 20 years, I haven't worked corporate in over 20 years. Have there been excellent times in my business? Yes. Even when I had my real estate business. Has there been bad times? Absolutely. But here's the difference. When there's bad times in your business, you learn, you get stronger, you grow, you become a problem solver, you have more of a rhino skin, right? You learn to develop strategy, mental aptitude, fortitude, even. You learn how to control your emotions, right? You learn how to be a more equipped person for the responsibility. But when you're depending on somebody else and that somebody else takes that thing away from you, so there's bad times with that, you don't really learn how to get better. What most people do is they just go to somewhere else. They go to somewhere else where they feel that they can depend on that. And it's a perpetual dependency. And I believe that my place in this whole thing is not to make you be independent or more independent or to be interdependent. I believe my role is to continue to speak life into you about what is possible, such that you get to a point where if it's for you, you will have the revelation that, you know what, I can do this. I believe in myself. So what if I fall down? I'll get up. So what if I don't make a sale my first day? I'll figure it out. So what if, I don't completely understand every single thing that I'm doing? I'm going to study more. You studied all that time in college. You studied all that time in grad school. You studied all that time in medical school or law school or whatever, nursing school, whatever school. You studied all that time. But when you learn how to be responsible for your own income, your own self, right? You look at things a lot differently. It doesn't mean that we don't help other people, but I have charitable aspects of what I do for that. I'm not in the business of giving away stuff because You don't give away your time at your job, do you? Do you give away your time when you go to that job and sit there from 8 to 5? Do you give away your precious time or do you exchange your time for money, right? So you know you're worth something. At least whatever the agreed upon amount is for the job that you work, at least you agree that it's at least whatever that number is. And that's fine because you get to determine that. But when you step out here into these streets where you cannot depend on the government, you cannot depend on the job, you cannot depend on your mama. Like my mother passed away in 2003, March the 2nd. So I can't depend on my mama. Some of you guys get to depend on your mama to do stuff for you. And it's not a bad thing if it's just about you appreciate and love your mom. But it can be a crippling thing when, as an adult, every time you have a problem, you just run back to your mama, as opposed to becoming stronger. There's some fear there somewhere. I don't know your situation, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to figure out exactly what it is. It's your job to figure out what it is. It's my job to bring it to the table so that you can at least make it a topic of discussion for yourself, a realization for yourself, to have a nice heart to heart with yourself and say, okay, self, we got to get this together because self, it ain't working. Self, I deserve more. Self, my kids deserve more. Self, my husband, my wife deserves more. Self, my legacy deserves more. My legacy does deserve generational wealth, right? Like I made a post earlier and there was a young lady and she said, well, hey, she didn't inherit anything generational wealth wise. And I responded, I mean, there was more to it, but that was the gist. And my response was, well, maybe you're the chosen one. That since you weren't left anything, maybe you can create something to be left. There's a point where we have to stop where we are and we've got to look around and we've got to say, okay, now what am I going to do different? What am I going to do? And I'm not necessarily talking about what are you going to do for everybody across the street and everybody in the world and everybody, hug the trees. I'm not necessarily speaking that because I'm a firm believer that you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help somebody else. I am. I am that. And apparently so are all the airlines. Apparently so are all the airlines. Apparently so are the people if you go on a cruise, you got to put the life preserver on, you get yourself together, then you help somebody else. Apparently when it comes to true survival, everyone understands that you cannot help somebody else survive if you have succumbed to whatever the tragedy was. Economically, there's a lot of people that are succumbing to the tragedy. And you're not even looking to save yourself. You just keep on hoping and depending on someone else who, if it came down to it, they're going to choose themselves over you. Think of it like this. I've personally never understood. Like I said, I don't work corporate. Haven't worked in a long time. But I've just never understood why people love to honor the, oh, I'm going to give my 2-week notice. You could do what you want to do. I'm just saying I never understood. You're going to be so good. You're going to give people your 2-week notice because you're respectful. But when it's time for them to let you go, they don't give you 2-week notice. They don't give you 2-week notice. Because when you walk away from that job doesn't have bills to pay. That job still has enough people working where their overhead's going to be covered. The office space, the lights are going to still get paid. The space that is being paid for, right? Whatever the rental space of the building or, the workspace that you're in, that's paid for, or the mortgage or the rent or the lease, that's going to get covered whether you quit or not, right? But if they fire you, a whole family's affected instantly. They don't feel bad about that. Nobody feels bad. Nobody calls you and say, "Hi, how you doing? I know we laid you off last week. Did you need anything?" Nobody does that. I just find it strange that you're so loyal to people, to entities, non-living things. You're loyal to entities more than you're loyal to yourself. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid that you won't be able to sustain? Well, you can't sustain right now. You're just used to not sustaining, and that's not a good thing. That's actually trauma to get used to survival. Let me explain something to you. When you are in a survival state, you cannot think about generational wealth. When you're in a survival state, you cannot think about anything other than the food, the water, the shelter. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. So if we really want to help people, we got to help people make sure that at least the base of that pyramid hierarchy of needs is met: food, shelter, water. So, what would happen if more people like me and you had businesses that generated revenue where we could actually donate money and give money charitably as tax write offs to people who need the things that they need for the hierarchy of needs, the base: food, shelter, water. But you don't want to have a business that produces revenue that allows you to do that. What we want to do is we want to act like having a business is something that is an option when all of your tax breaks are in a business. I watch people complain about taxes all the time. I'm like, if you had a business, you would understand, you would start to learn the benefits of how the tax code really works to benefit businesses. But because you're operating as an individual, you think that people who understand business tax, they're bad. Again, it's the illusion that the people with the money are bad, but it's the people that don't have the money that they're not bad, but they have a lack of understanding of how the thing actually works, how to make it work for them, and the realization that it's actually available to them for them to benefit from. It's not like it's only available to the people with the money, it's that the people with the money have realized how to take advantage of it. It's there for everybody. Like, it's there for everybody. Why would you not want to take advantage of something that lets you keep more of your money when you're already at a deficit? Why do you want to keep giving the government more of the money? So what are you afraid of? Here's what I want you to do. Okay? Here's really what I want you to do. I want you to ask yourself, well, I want to point out two things. Okay? Two things. Here's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to ask yourself, what are the biggest fears and doubts that you have that you seem to notice more often than not? What are you afraid of more often? And listen, if you're not going to assess you, then you will never be a better person, and you will never become the person that you need to be in order to earn the type of money that you say you want to earn. You cannot stay the same person that you are while simultaneously living a life that you've never lived before that you desire to live. You have to become the person that lives that life. So when we talk about education, it's not always extrinsic. It could be intrinsic, like learning about yourself, learning about things and how you behave, learning why you respond certain ways when you hear certain things, learning why you fear something, learning where that came from, learning why you doubt things. If you hear something that goes against the files that are in your brain, how that cognitive dissonance, even if it's facts being presented to you, why you dismiss that. Why? Ask yourself, what are the biggest fears and doubts you have that you seem to notice more often than not? And this is a personal conversation. This is not a paper you need to write. This is not a comment that you need to post. This is not something that you need to reveal to the world. This is something that if you don't really get in tune with who you are, listen, you're gonna continue to suffer in various areas. You should be striving to get better every day in whatever capacity that is. If it's your health, okay, you should be doing something every day to be moving in the direction of healing and health. not continuing to do the same thing that you know is going to create dis-ease in your body, especially if you've already been told by your doctor you have these ailments and these diseases. Like, how do we keep doing the things even after being made aware of a dysfunction? How do we keep doing the same things that create more of a dysfunction? It's literally a decision that you don't care about yourself, because people who want to live actually do things that promote life. People who don't want to live do things that promote the opposite. So that's one example. Your finances. If you want to actually get better, if you actually want to have more money, then you have to get better at making money, earning money, providing value, having products and services. You just have to get better at that. Do you fear learning how to achieve greater financial remuneration for yourself? You don't believe that you're worth sitting down watching a couple videos to learn how to do something that you didn't know how to do, but the thing that you now are learning how to do enhances who you are and puts you in a position to be able to go out and make more money? You would rather not do that and instead, what? Depend on the government? Beg the government? Now, I'm talking about my able bodied people out here. I'm talking about that group, the group that can do better, the group that should be doing better, but the group who is actively choosing not to do better, yet complain about things that are not better. And again, this is home based business. I'm speaking from an entrepreneurial perspective. I'm speaking about you and your own home economy, your own home economy. Because if you cannot put the oxygen mask on your economy in your home, I don't expect you to go out here and be bothered and be worried about the economy of the community, the economy of the city, the economy of the state, the economy of your region, the economy of the country. How could you be how are you having discussions about what's happening with the country and you're not even, you don't even have a handle on what's going on in your own four walls? That's in disarray. That's in disarray. You're working so much, you're in pain. You don't feel well. You're on your feet all day. And then you could learn how to make money on the internet, but you don't want to do that. But you want to do something. But you fear investing in yourself. Well, if you fear investing in yourself, you know why, right? Because you don't trust yourself. That's why. There's no way Floyd Mayweather would get into a ring with an opponent and bet on the opponent. Absolutely no way. There's no way Mike Tyson would get into a ring with an opponent and bet on the opponent. But you, every day, you get up, and I don't know who you're betting on, but you're not betting on you. It's this fear and this doubt, I promise you. And this stuff is hindering you. So I want you to answer that question for yourself. That's number one. What are the biggest fear and doubts that you have that you seem to notice more often than not? And then I want you to ask yourself this, and I want you to give yourself the answer. Write it down. How would the successful you respond to these fears and doubts? If you were to teleport yourself into the future as the successful you that you deem yourself to be, desire yourself to be, see yourself as being, what would that person say to the you right now about the fears and doubts that you are experiencing? What would the successful you tell the fearful and doubtful you? That means you know. That means you know better. But for some reason, you're choosing not to do better, right? Maybe sometimes we like the perpetual struggle because we don't know life without it. And life without it is, even though we say we want it, is actually kind of scary because if you've never had money, you don't know what to do with the money. If you've never invested in things before, you don't really know how to invest. What you know is your 401k from your job. But you don't really know how to invest. You don't know how to go and find opportunities, assess opportunities, make decisions, win some, lose others. Again, having the fortitude to be able to handle a loss. You don't ever grow because you avoid any opportunity to do such. You depend instead of grow. How will the successful you respond to these fears and doubts? Write that down when you're ready to handle these questions, not right now necessarily. And I want you to ponder on that. Maybe take some time tomorrow. Maybe take some time the next day. I don't know. Maybe don't take any time at all. Maybe just live with your fears. Maybe just live with your doubts. Maybe just depend and hope and pray somebody's going to save you from something or somewhere or somehow. But unless the person coming to save you is going to pay your rent, your mortgage, your car note, tuition for your children's school, your insurance, your light bill, your cell phone bill, unless the person you're depending on is going to actually pay those things for you directly, looks like to me, the only person you really got is the one you look at in that mirror. It's the only person you got. Now, if you're married or something like that, of course, you got your spouse, your partner. They can assist. But you're supposed to be sharing a life with someone. They are not living your life. You're living your life. They're living their life, and you're combining your lives together. You are still ultimately responsible for the life that you live, the decisions you make. Maybe you got somebody that can help guide you and y'all bounce things off each other, right? Your team, fine. But that person isn't living your life. The fear or the doubt is killing the game for you. And it's not going to get any better. Your job salaries are pretty much staying the same, and the cost to live is going up at a rapid rate. The more free stuff they give, the more money they print. This is basic economics. The more money those people print, the less value the money you have in your pocket is worth. So the more they keep printing, the more they give to all these other countries, the more we fund these wars, the more we do all this spending, the less the dollars in your wallet or your pocketbook are worth. And you can't change whether they're going to print it or not. So if you don't figure out how to get more of the money, since it's worth less than it was yesterday, you hustling backwards. Y'all ever heard that? You hustling backwards. That's all my inner city people, my inner city folk. Y'all hustling backwards. Your kids, you setting them up to hustle backwards. Because of your fear. So you're going to instill fear in your children. You don't even know. And whether it's failure you're afraid of or success, again, failure is like, hey, you just don't want to be ridiculed or criticized for making mistakes. Success is self sabotage. Like, well, if I'm successful, then people might call me and ask me for money or borrow or this or that, whatever, right? And you don't want to handle that. So you avoid making enough because you don't want that type of responsibility. Either way, it's a fear. And either way, you get to decide whether you want to help somebody or not. Whether you got them, it's better to have the money and have the option to decide whether to give or not than it is to struggle and not have the money. It's better to try and fail and learn and get help and try again and then be able to be in position than it is to continue to struggle and not even try at all. This is August. This year has flown by. How much better off are you now than you were in January? Real question. How much better off now are you than you were in January? And if you still hustling backwards, guess what? You're going to be hustling backwards in December. You know why? Because you don't control that. Until you take control of the steering wheel, you a passenger. You don't control nothing sitting over there in the passenger seat. Yeah, you in the front. Yeah, you can see. You think you might have a little say so because you know the driver, you know, but the driver ultimately has all the say so, all the power. I'm gonna need you to get in the driver's seat. It's your life. And if you're afraid and you can't find yourself coming out of being fearful for one way or another, then you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. But you don't get to complain because you actually could be doing better. You're just choosing not to. That's okay too. That's an option that you have, but you don't get to complain. If you are able to push through and overcome that fear, whether it's the fear of failure or success, I embrace you and I welcome you. And there's tons of people, whether it's me or somebody else that you like to watch or follow or learn from or whatever. It doesn't have to be me, but there's somebody out there who will be able to help guide you at least to the next step and then the next step. And then maybe you find somebody else to take you to the next step and the next step. But there's people all along this illuminated path that can show you how to get to where you want to get to. But you're afraid to take the first step. You're afraid to spend a couple dollars. You're afraid to get in a e-learning course and learn something, but you're not afraid to go get another loan and put that up and be in school for another 3 4 years. You're not afraid of that, but you're afraid to spend $500, $600, $900 one time and have the skill that is currently necessary. And it's almost like a trade. You know how when you back in the day, like my grandfather, when he moved from Georgia to Chicago, that was part of the industrial age, right? I think he worked at a steel mill or something in Chicago. He had a trade. He knew how to provide value in the environment that was relative at the time. Today, knowing how to work this internet and how to build a business and a life, it's like a trade. It's not really an option to not know how to navigate the internet. This is why you have these young people, younger people, because I'm young too, child, but you have these younger people that's doing millions and millions of dollars from their cell phones, living life, traveling the world while you're at work. If you'd only listen, if you'd only learn, I learn things from my son all the time. He was showing me something. He was like, Mom, all you got to do is this. And I had a cell phone before he was even born. He's like, Mom, all you got to do is this. I'm like, dang, my son is literally teaching me about some dang technology, and I thought I was pretty savvy. All you gotta do is listen. You might learn something from the young people. See, when we were growing up, right, there was the older people would say, you be quiet. You be quiet. Stay in a child place, right? But today, those same child place y'all talking about, those are the millionaires. Those the people that's making 10 to $20 million from learning skills, from knowing how to leverage, from having businesses online, from building partnerships and relationships with people that understand technology and crypto and all this stuff. And y'all scared to learn. Y'all hoping somebody in Washington, D.C. is going to make a change that's going to be so much of a catalyst for you that you'd rather spend your time doing that than learning the thing that is directly proportionate to your quality of life. So, as we close out, I just want to remind you that fear and faith cannot operate in the same space. Whatever fears or doubts you have, you must first figure out what they are, have a talk with yourself. Then you must figure out what the successful you would recommend about those fears and doubts. What would that future person tell you? And listen to yourself. Because innately, you have the answer. I think it was Morpheus that talked about that in the Matrix, right? It's like, you already know, like everything, you got it. Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, like, all you had to do was click your heels 3 times. You always had the power, right? You think that's random? That you always had the power? But you're so busy looking all around that this world has gotten people to a point where they look outside of themselves for everything. They look outside of themselves for financial support. They look outside of themselves for emotional support. They look outside of themselves for mental support. They look outside of themselves for spiritual support. They look outside of themselves, outside, 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 and you're walking around with all the power right inside of your own vessel. Have you ever heard the phrase right under your own nose? It's kind of like what this is. And I'm just trying to help shake you a little bit. So it's you. You have the power. That's what I'm doing virtually. You can do it. I believe in you. No matter what anybody else is saying, you actually can. Now, will you is another issue. I don't know if you will or you won't, but can you? Absolutely. You have to make that decision on whether you will or not. It's not my job to tell you that. It's my job to remind you and show you with this 90-day challenge that you can. Give you the skills, teach you the skills, teach you the basics, give you some fundamental principles, give you things that you can implement and execute. Will or won't, that's up to you. That's called options, free will. Okay? So let's start here. If you haven't already grabbed my free digital marketing blueprint, I want you to click on the link in the description right below this video if you're watching this on YouTube, where it says get the blueprint. Click on that link. Or you can go to this link right here, makemoneywithtracy.com. You can type that in, Tracey. Don't forget the E in my name. You can go directly there. If you're watching this on Facebook, you'll find a link in the comments. Get the blueprint. There's other resources available as well. But the most important thing is that you get the blueprint. Because if you could use $1,900 a day, if you could use that, and you want to know how you can legitimately do that legally, morally, and ethically, if you want to know how you could do it, why would you not get the blueprint? And it's free. See, the fear that you have of even getting it is almost like you're afraid to learn that this thing could actually work. Because if this thing could actually work, then that would mean that all of my fear has been delaying me. And now I'm going to feel bad that I didn't take action sooner. So I'm not going to take action at all. I'm going to, in fact, ignore that it even exists. Why are you doing that to yourself? If you're in the car and you're going the wrong direction. The sooner you realize you're going the wrong direction and bust a U-turn and go the right direction, it's only going to benefit you. To stay going the wrong direction because your ego's in the way, or because you're afraid somebody's going to see that you turned around, or because you're going to feel bad that you wasted a little bit of time, that still isn't going to help you. You're still going the wrong direction. So even if you stayed in the car a whole nother hour, you've just gone that further away from your goal. And I'm saying, just turn around now. Just get the blueprint. Assess the blueprint. We're teaching you exactly what you need to do. Either you're willing to do it or you're not willing to do it, but it's not really rocket science by any means. Some of you guys have careers and jobs that are far more difficult than what we're doing on the internet, but you're only making a fraction of what we're making on the internet. And your day is gone, and you're in traffic, and you got to dress up and be in front of those people all day. If you love doing it, then so be it. But if you're not thrilled with it, then you're subjecting yourself to something that you don't need to subject yourself to. Why would you do that to yourself? It's just a choice. So I want you to click on the link, whether in the comments on Facebook or whether in the description here on YouTube. I want you to get the digital marketing blueprint. And I want you to make a decision to do something different. Because if you look at the last 5 years and you're still doing the same thing, the likelihood that if you don't change now, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be in the same position 5 years from now. You know why? Because your past usually is an indication of where you're going, unless you make a change. If you by default do not make a change, I promise you, you'll be worse off 5 years from now. You won't be in the same place. You'll be worse. It's not a scary thing or a fear tactic. It's just, look, at some point, you've got to come to the realization that it ain't all roses. You got to do something. You can create the roses because you're in control of the steering wheel, but you'll never create the roses while somebody else is in control of your life, control of your income, or control of your salary. Yeah, but control of your income too. Who else should be in control of your income? Shouldn't it be you? I don't know. What do I know? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that tonight, it was a little late, but you got some value, and you've got your assessment questions in reference to your fear of failure or success. And I want you to make a determination, a decision. I want you to cut off all other options that lead you down a path of unhappy, of no joy, of despair, of pain, of irritation, of anxiety, of all of that, and start putting yourself in an environment and in a position where you can actually live life free, where you can have joy, peace, prosperity, happiness, health, wealth. You know, you deserve those things. Allow it into your life. That's my charge to you. So with that, go ahead, click on the link, grab the free digital marketing blueprint. And guess what, guys? I will see you all on tomorrow for day number 44. We are very, very close to our halfway mark, which would be day number 45. But right now we're only at 44. So make sure that you are following all of the videos in this challenge. Catch yourself up if you need to. And we're going to keep the show rolling. See y'all tomorrow. Bye.